I'm Melissa Case from Hat to Hem, and today I am going to start on a project I have been planning for a long time. I know I say that a lot, and that's because I did make it a goal to work on just projects that excite me this year, and this one does excite me because I've been planning this one since 2017, and I have the receipts to prove it. The fabric I bought for this project predates my marriage. So why haven't I worked on it? I haven't worked on it yet because it never felt like the right time. Life gets in the way, and deadlines get in the way, and sometimes it's just, a project has to take a back seat. But today, I'm finally working on it. So what's the project? You already know because you clicked on this video and it was in the thumbnail and the title, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Today, I'm going to be making 18-inch doll-sized versions of two characters that mean a lot to me. These dresses are inspired by Laura Ingalls and Shirley. Now, there's a pretty big span of time between these two costumes. Laura's is around... Oh, hi, honey. Laura's story takes place mainly in the 1870s, when Anne's story, well, honestly, I think there's a little bit of debate. The book came out in 1908, but Anne is obsessed with puff sleeve dresses, so that could be more 1890s. I guess it's just up to your interpretation. I did reread the book a couple years ago, but I honestly don't remember clocking a date in my mind. I think I was just too busy enjoying the journey. Anyway, these dresses will be pretty similar. Adult fashion changed wildly during this time period, but standard little girl fashions, I guess not that much. Alright, quick backstory, because apparently every project I do right now has to have a backstory. I knew Little House on the Prairie before I knew Anne of Green Gables, and that's because of my mom. My mom was a huge fan of the TV show. I was definitely watching it at a young age, and I remember her reading the books to me, and I even remember how they smell. That's how much of a core memory it is for me. She loved it so much that I'm actually named after Melissa Gilbert. I even have the box set, and we've been rewatching it for, I think, the last 7 years. And I think we're only at season 4. It's been a slow process because, again, life gets in the way, but I enjoy that every now and then we can carve out time and watch an episode together. My love of Anne of Green Gables came a little bit later, but it's no less important to me. My personal attachment to this story isn't just I liked it growing up. My husband and I actually went to Prince Edward Island as part of our honeymoon. We saw Green Gables and pretty much every Anne-related museum on the island, but it's just still very important to me. We're actually currently watching The Road to Avonlea, and our son loves it. He's 2 years old, but he keeps asking to watch Avonlea, which is what he calls it. Well, it doesn't quite sound like Avonlea, but we know it's Avonlea. He also really likes Rachel Lynde. She pops up on screen and goes, "Rachel Lynde, so silly." Pretty sure the character would be mortified to be called silly, but oh well. Now for this project, I'm going to be using a book called Heritage Doll Clothes. So 20 American outfits for your 18-inch doll. It's a cute book, and I've not been able to use it before, so I'm excited I finally get to use it, especially since I bought this again in 2017. So I guess hang on to your books because you never know when you're going to use them. Now, I already made the necessary unmentionables, and then for this project, I'm going to be primarily using the Prairie dress pattern. The apron and sunbonnet will be used for my Laura doll, and I will probably be doing something a little bit different for my Anne doll. We'll see. Speaking of my Anne doll, she needs a little bit of work. Now for Laura, I'm going to be using my American Girl Samantha doll, partly because she was the doll I was playing with when I first started watching Little House on the Prairie, and it feels like a little nice full circle moment. However, I didn't want to use Felicity for Anne. I don't know why, it just didn't feel like a right fit. So instead, I was able to find this doll. She is a Journey Girls doll. Her name is Kelsey. I know the body for these dolls is a little bit different than the American Girl dolls. I think they're just a bit slimmer. So we'll see how everything fits on her. This doll is actually part of why I realized it was time to make this project. I saw her in the store. I saw the freckles, I saw the little smile, and I'm just like, that is Anne Shirley. She needs a little bit of styling, but I think she's going to make a good Anne. So, through the magic of editing, let me show you how this turned out. Once I got Kelsey out of the box, which took a lot of time, I decided to keep her hair in the original style for now. I wanted to get some good before and after shots of her since she is just so modern. So you'll see her in the classic Anne braids at the end of this video. I just wanted to share my costume inspirations real fast. Now for the Laura Ingalls dress, she has this red dress that she wears pretty often in at least season 1. It might also show up in season 2, I actually can't remember. I'm pretty sure it shows up in the Little House on the Prairie movie that eventually served as like the pilot for the whole series. She has this red dress that she wears. It has a little Peter Pan collar and a little yoke in the front, and it's just really cute. There's also this ruffle around the bottom that I'm assuming was added on to show that Laura grew when they were trying to get as much use out of that little dress as possible. I remember her wearing it with this yellow bonnet with red polka dots on it. I never got a close enough look to see if those polka dots are actually flowers or strawberries or something, but it always read as red polka dots. So I was able to find fabric that was close to that, so I'm kind of excited about that. And then she would have worn it with this white apron, or pinafore. I guess apron because it's a little more utilitarian. I don't really know the difference between an apron and a pinafore, so I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Alright, so it looks like a pinafore had like, you know, the apron and everything, but it also had the front that came over your shoulders, and that aprons usually either had no bib or they had a smaller one. So the more you know. Thank you, Google. Now for the Anne dress, I'm going to do a more cheerful version of what's usually in the Anne of Green Gables promotional pics. So she's wearing like a faded gray dress that's a little too small on her, and a faded striped blue pinafore. Now her pinafore doesn't have a waist to it. It's kind of goes up here and then it's loose all the way around. And that's why I'm not going to be using the same apron pinafore pattern as I'm using for Laura. I'm going to alter one for Anne. We'll see how it goes. Now, I don't have the exact fabric for her. My fabrics are a little bit brighter, a little more cheerful. I like to think that it's probably what she imagined it looked like as opposed to what she actually had. I honestly wouldn't have minded doing like a faded version, but I don't have time to do that to the fabric, so oh well. So yeah, I guess I'm not quite Annifying it because I'm not doing big puff sleeves or ruffles or frills or anything like that. But I'll at least cheer it up a little bit, which really, that's what Anne would want, right? Alright, let's get started. All of the fabric pieces are cut out for both dresses. So each dress has a front piece. See right here, it was cut on the fold. We got 2 back pieces, 4 collar pieces, front and back. The pattern only called for 2, but I decided to go with 4 because of how I want to make it. Then each dress has 2 sleeves, 2 cuffs, and then the skirts are where things varied a little bit. So Anne's skirt is just 1 piece, and then I had Laura's skirt, which is a shorter piece, and then I'm going to do a ruffle at the bottom. Now, one thing is bothering me a little bit, and that is about Laura's dress, because I'm pretty sure she has a waistband in the middle of the dress, and I'm trying to decide if that's the direction I want to go in, because then I need to just think about that for a second. Alright, so it turns out I didn't have to think about it too hard, because Kirsten's patterns have her school dress, which has the waistband. So I'm just going to print that out real fast and add it to the Laura dress. The first step for pretty much all the garments I made for this project was to sew the shoulder seams together. I didn't show this every time I did it, but every time I sewed a seam, I ran it through my serger to finish off the edge, and I pressed it with my iron. There's a lot of pressing and serging in this project, and I figured showing it every single time would get a little tedious. Just know that I was doing that behind the scenes. I stitched up the collar pieces right sides together, and I clipped the seam because it's on a curve. Each piece was pressed flat, turned inside out. I used this little tool to kind of make my edges a little crisper, and then I pressed it again. I cut a small piece of bias tape out of my fabric that I used to finish off the collar. It was sewn along the neckline, folded under, and then stitched to the actual bodice. It's mostly hidden by the collar, so visibility isn't too big of an issue. Next, I ran gathering stitches along the top and bottom of the sleeves. The bottom was gartered up to fit the cuff pieces, attached, serged, and pressed over, and then I very carefully stitched in the ditch to secure it. The top of the sleeve was gartered to fit the armhole of the bodice. I also attached a little bit of Velcro that's going to be used to secure the cuffs. With the shape of the American Girl hands, it's just so much easier to give yourself a little bit of extra room to get these sleeves on. After that, I stitched up the entire side seam, starting right above that Velcro and going down the sleeve and then down the side of the bodice. Every time I close a side seam like this, it just feels like magic and it just makes me so happy. The Velcro probably could have looked a little bit neater, but it gets the job done. And this is where I realized I had a problem. Here is the bodice for the Laura dress. I attached the waistband. I wanted to see where it would end up. I thought for a second it might have been okay, but it's just a little bit too low. So I think I just need to bring it up to about here. And I think that would make a pretty big difference. I'm just going to flip this over and just stitch it. I'm not even going to bother cutting it or anything like that. I don't care if there's a little bit of extra bulk here. I'm hoping that that will be just enough to fix it and get the proportions right. So I'm just going to get that done quickly. Alright, I'm not sure if it's perfect, but it's definitely better, so good enough for me. It took a little bit of math, but I figured out how long I wanted the ruffle to be, which I then cut out and hemmed, and ran gathering stitches along the top. I closed the back seam of the skirt, leaving a good amount at the top open so I'd be able to get the dress on and off the doll easily. And then I realized I had another problem. Please ignore the Merry Christmas sounds coming from the other room. My son really likes the Christmas episode of Blue's Clues and You, so we've been watching a lot of that. It's July 1st, so I guess we're just doing Christmas in July right now. Anyway, I was working on this skirt ruffle and I realized that I don't think I'm doing it right. Because the way I have it set up right now is it would be sewed like this. The way I have it set up right now is that it should be together like this, right sides together. And I think the ruffle should actually just be tacked onto the top. So what I think I need to do is I need to take out my gathering threads. I need to fold this over, run the gathering threads again, and then gather it up. And then I'll have to tack the gather to the front of the skirt, wrong side to correct side rather than wrong sides together. But that should give me the look I want. And hopefully it won't take too much extra time, but we'll see. All that was left was to attach the skirt to the bodice. Again, this was gathered up and serged. Are you seeing a pattern here? I removed the gathering threads and I lightly pressed the ruffle to try and tame it a little bit. After that, I added the Velcro for the back closure and the dress was done. The end dress was assembled in pretty much the same way. The main differences came with the skirt. As I mentioned before, there's no ruffle for this one. So instead, after I hemmed it, I pressed a tuck into it, which I then stitched down at about 1/2 inch. Once again, it was pressed, attached to the bodice, and serged. So both dresses are finally done. I pretty much made the and dress in one sitting, and frankly, I'm proud of myself for that because I didn't think that was going to happen tonight. You can definitely see the difference in the body of this doll versus the Samantha American Girl dolls. She's definitely smaller. She's almost looks like she's drowning in this dress a little bit, but oh well. Not much I can do about that. Besides, it's meant for the American Girl dress. If it's a little bit big on her, that's fine. However, that does bring up one thing that I would do differently, and it's the bodice of this dress. On the American Girls, it's a bit tight. So I probably would have added a little bit more fabric to the bodice, but again, it is what it is. She's going to be wearing a little pinafore over it, so I guess it really doesn't matter that much. So I feel like you can really see the differences between these two dresses because up to a point, they're the same. But then I have this little waistband for the Laura dress, and the Anne dress just goes right to her waist. And then the Laura dress has this ruffle around it, while the Laura dress has a little bit of a ruffle around it, and the Anne dress has a growing tuck, or whatever it's called. So the idea is as the little girl grew, this tuck would be let down, and then she'd have just a little bit more length to work with. And if she needed even more, they would add a ruffle. You know, I guess that kind of justifies the bodice being a little tight. She's outgrowing this dress. So yeah, that was totally on purpose. It's all just part of my storytelling. Anyway, I am finishing up for tonight. So up next will be the little pinafores and the bonnet for Laura. This is a little bit off topic, but I really think that the colors suit them. I feel like I managed to get like the exact right shade of green for the Anne doll's eyes, and I just think red always looks good on brunettes. But I'm a little biased being a brunette. Alright, I'm rambling. It's time for bed. Yeah, hopefully the rest won't take too long. Yeah, hopefully the rest won't take too long. I decided to work on Anne's Pinafore first because I know myself. Because Anne's Pinafore doesn't come from a ready-made pattern, I need to put a little bit more work into the beginning of the project because I need to plan out a little bit more and possibly either drape or draft or at the very least do some math. That little bit of extra work would be just enough to stall me getting started at all. So I figured if I made the Pinafore now, while I was in the sewing zone, I would have an easier time getting back into the sewing room later for Laura's because at the time I thought I'd be working directly from the pattern. The bodice of Anne's Pinafore is fully lined, and then the skirt part is attached. I actually ended up using the exact same measurements I used for Anne's skirt. Because it has a higher waistline, it will look a little bit shorter, and I thought that would really work out well. This ended up being a lot simpler than I had anticipated. The one thing I want to add is that the front of this Pinafore is flat, then there's little tucks going from that section to the side seams, and then the back is gathered. Hopefully that's enough to give it the same look as the original Pinafore that's in the show. Up next is Laura's, and you'll see I kinda changed my plan. Alright, so I am changing my plan a little bit. My original plan was to make the exact apron that's in the picture. However, I don't want to. I know that sounds bad. I don't want to deal with the little buttons or like the little tiny straps or anything like that. So I think I'm going to go more towards this apron here, which was in the actual show. The other option would be to go with one like this with the higher bodice section, but that would be a little close to what I just did for the Anne dress, and I do want these two to look different. So you can see the bodice is a bit different here. So I think I'm actually going to combine my pattern pieces. I think I'm actually going to go with having it as long as this one here, but with a lower neckline like this. So I'll combine the two pattern pieces together and hope for the best. So I guess we'll see how that goes. Well, I messed up. I ended up going too quickly and I sewed the pieces together incorrectly. You can kind of see there's a light pattern on here. And there's definitely a right side and a wrong side to this. And I sewed everything wrong sides together instead of right sides together. So I have to take it all apart and do it again. Luckily, it's just 4 shoulder seams. It's not that much work, but it's still just annoying. Now, if you watch enough CosTube videos, a lot of us probably talk about pressing our seams, and this is partly why. So this side is not pressed yet, but this side is. And you can see this side looks a bit more crisp than this side. It's laying flatter. I just think it looks better. So that's always my advice for people who are starting to sew. It's just always make sure that you're doing a lot of pressing. Please enjoy this short and rare segment of Sewing with a 2-year-old. Yeah. Here, look at me. I'll tell you when to press that, but don't press it until I tell you to, okay? So just watch. Not yet. Almost. Not yet. Not yet. Look, look. You have to, not until I'm down here, okay? Wait. Okay, now you can press it. No, this one. There we go. Good boy. The skirt was then gathered up to the bodice, and as you can see, my tiny audience kind of lost interest at this point, but using the sewing machine brought him back. As you can see, the sewing machine was off whenever it was not in use, and that was for the peace of mind and safety for all involved. Okay, now you can hit it. Good job. All that was left was the bonnet. Honestly, this was the part I was looking forward to the most. I wanted a bonnet ever since I was 4, so this was pretty exciting for me. The bodice just consists of a brim, a gathered part, and some straps. I did use some interfacing to stiffen the brim a little bit. It's attached using a damp cloth and my iron, which results in what I consider to be one of the most satisfying sounds of sewing. And you can already see what a difference it makes. I hemmed the bottom of the bonnet and I attached a piece of bias tape, which is what I will run my elastic through. I had absolutely no interest in doing some self-bias, so I just used some store-bought one. It's fine, nobody really sees it. The main part of the bonnet was then gathered to the brim. It was pressed and then very carefully stitched in the ditch to secure it. I threaded a piece of elastic through the casing I made, and then I secured it on both ends. Now for the annoying part, making the straps. The straps are pretty much long tubes of fabric that have been sewn shut on one end. I used the same tool I used to thread the elastic to turn this tube inside out. I will have the link to it in my description in case you decide you want one of your own. As annoying turning a tube of fabric inside out is, it's still pretty satisfying. I folded the open end of the tube under and then I stitched it to the bonnet. I added snaps and buttons to the pinafores and the project was done. I had so much fun with this project. Not only was I able to bring two of my favorite literary/TV characters to life, I was also able to experiment with these patterns. I really enjoyed the differences between these dresses and these pinafores despite the fact that I pretty much used the same patterns for both. I was so happy with how this project turned out that I even went outside in 90-degree weather to take pictures of these dresses. Both of these dresses are for sale. If you're interested in purchasing one or both of them, you can head to my description where I should have a link. Obviously there's only one of each dress, so right now it's first come first serve. If more than one person's interested in buying them, I would consider making these again because it was a fairly easy project and I had fun with it. As always, thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Because this fabric was bought in 2017, they did not financially back this project, but I still appreciated their support and their likes for my posts and just cheering me on. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and let me know in the comments which dress/character you'd like better. If you're interested, I did make a full-size Laura Ingalls Wilder dress a couple of years ago for Halloween. I made this project in 3 days and I recorded all of it, so if you're interested, the link is here. And I will see you next time. Bye!